Before we get underway with today's review, I'd like to sincerely offer my apologies to the people of Quebec for the following performance.
Bonjour et bienvenue à... Will to Read. My name is... I do not like to give personal details when I do not have to on the internet. I do not think it's worth it given all of these scams and identity theft that happens. Your normal host, Will, he seems very intimidated by my presence. I do not know why. I think I am très gentil. I do not know why he is tied up. I do not know where he got that rope. C'est très bizarre. It appears some shady landlord has been renting out my attic, and I did not notice him until 2 weeks ago. He is very quiet. I do not know how he did not notice me. It is a very troublesome situation. The point is, I will be filling in for him this week. I would normally talk en français because I am very proud of my heritage, but I am told that the internet is very anglophone, and I do not want this poor man to lose followers. He seems very troubled as it is. So I will speak your tongue, even though it sounds like ornets in my ears. Not many people know this, but despite my rough exterior, I am very interested en la classique littérature française, and I have recently finished reading an English butchering of the controversial classic Thérèse Raquin de Émile Zola. I would like to discuss it with you, but based on what I observed while he was filming, I will have to first give you a brief summary of the novel. I will now read from the back of the book. Thérèse Raquin is a clinically observed sinister tale of adultery and murder among the lower orders in 19th century Paris. Many readers were scandalized by Zola's approach to character drawing, which seemed to undermine not only the moral values of a deeply conservative society, but also the whole code of psychological description on which the realist novel was based. Together with the important preface to the second edition, in which Zola defended himself against charges of immorality, Thérèse Raquin stands as a key early manifesto of the French naturalist movement, of which Zola was the founding father. Even today, this novel has lost none of its power to shock. That does not give you much of the plot, so I will expand a bit. As one might expect, this story follows the titular character. She was born to an Algerian mother and fathered by a French soldier who dropped her in the lap of his sister after the mother died for unexplained reasons. Thérèse is then raised by her aunt alongside her overprotected cousin, Camille, and they eventually marry. However, Thérèse is dissatisfied and becomes smitten with Camille's friend Laurent, and they begin an impassioned love affair, which leads to a scheme which will allow them to be together. From there, things unfold. Before I begin my analysis, I want to warn that I will be giving some slight spoilers. All of the specific events that I discuss happen within the first third of the book, so they are fairly minor, but I thought I would give a warning for those who want to go into this masterpiece fresh. Thérèse Raquin is a masterful tale of how guilt and paranoia can eat away at the mind and destroy all things which once brought a person joy. At points, I would even say it resembles a horror novel. The way that Thérèse and Laurent evolve over the course of the plot is truly terrifying, not because of how stark the change is, but because of how understandable and realistic it feels. Of course, my sympathy for them is limited, as the cause of their deterioration is guilt over the killing of a man who was nothing but good to both of them. Perhaps not as caring as he could have been, but certainly not hostile or villainous. However, despite being killed around 60 pages in, Camille's presence is felt until the very last page of the novel, haunting the lovers and tormenting them, not as a literal ghost, but in a more figurative sense. The scar which Camille leaves on Laurent's neck during their struggle serves as a kind of constant reminder of this fact, in a similar respect to the beating art in Poe's classic story, The Telltale Art. In fact, this scar torments Laurent to the point where he is tempted to rid himself of it, a constant warning. The following passage involves descriptions of self-harm, so if you do not wish to hear it, this is your cue to skip ahead to this timestamp. Many times when shaving, he had been tempted to cut into his neck to try and remove the marks left by the drowned man's teeth. In front of the mirror, when he raised his chin and caught sight of the red patch showing through the foamy white lather, he would suddenly be filled with rage and bring the razor up close, on the point of chopping straight into the flesh. But the cold feel of the blade on his skin always brought him to his senses, and then he would go weak at the knees and have to sit down, until the balance of his cowardly nature was restored and he could finish his shave. Camille's presence is felt in many other ways as well. Zola describes on many occasions how it feels as though Camille is literally in between the couple when they are sleeping together. He also makes his appearance known in the details of all of Laurent's paintings, or at least Laurent thinks he does. This paranoia eventually leads to the couple accusing the other of being more responsible for the death and becoming outright hostile and physically abusive towards one another. However, it is important to note that this does not come out of nowhere. One simply has to look at how Zola initially describes their coupling. This is how Laurent describes Thérèse when he is thinking of going through with the affair. She's bored to death in that shop. I only go there because I've got nothing better to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't catch me anywhere near the Passage de Pont-Neuf. It's so damp and dismal. It must be death to a woman like her. She finds me attractive, I'm sure of that, so why not me rather than someone else? The thing is, he thought to himself, she's really very plain. She's got a long nose and a big mouth. Anyway, I don't love her the slightest bit, and it could well get me into some unpleasantness. And this is how he describes their first kiss and sexual encounter. The young woman had remained crouching there, staring absently in front of her. She was quivering and seemed to be waiting for something. Laurent hesitated. He examined the canvas and played with his brushes. Time was slipping away. Camille might come back. There might never be another opportunity. Suddenly the painter turned round and found himself face to face with Thérèse. They looked intently at each other for a few seconds. Then, in a violent movement, Laurent bent down, took the young woman in his arms, and pressed her against his chest. He pushed her head back and crushed her lips beneath his own. She made one wild, instinctive attempt to fight him off, then suddenly her resistance ceased and she slid down onto the floor. They did not exchange a word. Their act was silent and brutal. That does not sound to me like an affair of love, and I never got the impression that it truly evolved into that prior to the murder. It seemed like an affair of convenience for two people deeply unhappy in their present circumstances. Unfortunately, they interpreted these small moments of escape from their disappointing realities as a love, eventually leading them to committing murder. And the only reason they seem to have gone through with their scheme to marry one another is because if they did not, it would have meant that they'd killed a friend and a companion for nothing. While this novel is indeed a tragedy for Thérèse and Laurent, I cannot help but point out that the bigger tragedy is that of Madame Raquin, Camille's mother. Thérèse and Laurent killed an innocent man, and thus I feel less sympathy for their descent. However, Madame is an innocent bystander who did nothing but provide love and support for her family and friends. Her love for Camille appeared to maybe border on smothering, but it is understandable given Camille's many health issues, and her support of Thérèse and Laurent's marriage shows a willingness to move on and accept change for others' happiness. I will not get into specifics, but what happens to her is truly heartbreaking. I was not sure what to expect going into this. I knew of Zola, but had not read any of his work, and knew that this book was controversial. I assumed due to its exploration of adultery, but did not know any other detail of the plot. Zola's writing is truly masterful. He builds things slowly and makes you feel every second of the collapse of the lovers and their quote-unquote perfect plan. There are also many motifs which are repeated throughout the novel, which build on each other and emphasize various themes. I personally found it a very enjoyable and effective style of writing. Although the translator, Andrew Rothwell, in his introduction to the book, explains that there are many phrases which are repeated over and over, and where he felt it necessary, he rephrased them. I would like to read this book en français in order to see whether or not this was truly warranted. He also claims that Zola uses extreme language when not necessary in order to heighten the drama, which results in him having to up his language more and more as the novel goes on. He notes he did not change this aspect of the book, but that he found it frustrating. I personally found the heightened language to be enjoyable, and found that it heightened the melodrama of the whole affair, but I can see why others might take Rothman's side, as it could potentially undercut many truly dramatic and terrifying moments in the latter part of the book. Overall, I found this book to be very enjoyable, even though I did have to put it down a few times due to feeling overwhelmed by the characters' stats. I will definitely be looking to read more of Zola's work and would highly recommend it, not just to those interested in classic literature, but also those interested in the thriller and horror genres. That is all for this week. This has been Will to. C'est strange. Je ne l'entends.
Who are you?